Apparently, there's no guarantee that Kawhi Leonard remains with the Clippers, and are the Mavericks in a position to make a run at Kawhi Leonard and or Chris Paul? This is the gray area right here on Kevin Gray Sports. My name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. You can catch me on your home with the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers. 105.3 The Fan. The quote from longtime NBA insider Mark Stein goes something like this. The Mavs will try to do everything they can to get Kawhi Leonard. The Knicks and Heat will try as well. The situation with Kawhi is no longer a safe assumption. He's staying with the Clippers, end quote. Now, that's kind of a big deal. Now, you say, Kevin, of course it's a big deal. It's Kawhi Leonard, one of the 5-7 best players in all of the NBA, a 2-time NBA champion, a 2-time Finals MVP, and a guy that, yes, has a partially torn ACL and questions on when he will come back during next season in the NBA. I get all of that. But are the Mavericks actually in a position to make a run at Kawhi Leonard and or Chris Paul? You'll hear from Bobby Marks of ESPN here in just a second about the chances that the Mavericks could be a potential suitor when it comes to the services of Chris Paul, who would have to decline his over $44 million option with the Phoenix Suns to try and get into free agency to look to sign a long-term deal with another team, either with the Suns or somewhere else. More on that here in just a moment. But back to the Kawhi Leonard front. Now, here's what has to happen for the Mavericks to get to even a space where they can even consider trying to go after Kawhi Leonard. Number one, you've got to renounce Tim Hardaway Jr. and him coming back to your basketball team, where you could get the idea and sense that Tim Hardaway on the open market could get anywhere between $18 to $21 million. He just completed a 4-year, $71+ million deal this past year with the Mavericks as he goes into unrestricted free agency. You would also have to see a guy in Josh Richardson decline his $11.6 million player option for himself going into this upcoming season. That could get you to the $34 million that you're looking for. Now, the Mavericks also have a team option when it comes to Willie Cauley-Stein. You most likely would need to renounce that to make sure that you have the requisite cap space to be able to go after one of these big-time free agents, whether it's Kawhi Leonard or Chris Paul. I was mentioning Chris Paul just a second ago, a guy who's going into his 17th NBA season. He is not going to retire, coming off of a devastating 6-game series loss in the NBA Finals, of course, to the Milwaukee Bucks. Here is ESPN's Bobby Marks on the idea that while the Lakers may not necessarily be a team where Chris Paul could find himself given their ridiculous cap situation, could the Mavericks actually be a potential suitor for Chris Paul's services? Here's what Bobby Marks had to say.
Well, Jay, I don't want to burst the bubble of Laker fans out there, but it is highly unlikely that Chris Paul is going to take a $40 million discount to go sign with the Lakers based on them only having, I know, would you? They only have the $5.9 million taxman level. So we can likely rule out the Lakers here, but I think if Phoenix elects to play hardball with Paul, we are looking at teams like New York. His former agent Leon Rose is the president. Paul can potentially earn up to $43 million to go to New York. You're looking at teams like Dallas. You're looking at potentially the Miami Heat. But I would still put Phoenix in the driver's seat, even if Paul does enter free agency in early August here.
So look, while he says it's unlikely that the Lakers would be a team that could actually sign Chris Paul given their cap situation right now, the Mavericks, if they find themselves clearing the requisite cap space to be able to do so, they could be a potential suitor for Chris Paul. Now look, these are real pie-in-the-sky names, the Kawhi Leonards of the world, the Chris Pauls of the world. Chris Paul, especially in his 17th NBA season, he's trying to get to a place, I would imagine, that gives him the best opportunity to win a championship this upcoming season. Now, whom that could be, given the numbers that he's probably looking for in free agency, I'm not sure at this point. But if you're the Mavericks and you're thinking about making a run at Kawhi Leonard and or Chris Paul, you're going to make real decisions about guys very soon. We've seen several players already decline player options, guys like the Spencer Dinwiddies of the world from the Brooklyn Nets. You've seen it with Norman Powell from the Portland Trail Blazers, even though both sides appear to be motivated to try to get a deal done there. You've seen Will Barton decline his from the Denver Nuggets. Maybe Josh Richardson decides to follow suit with his $11.6 million option to see what he could get on the open market. Now, that's going to be a little bit more tricky, because your man Josh Richardson didn't necessarily have the best season with the Dallas Mavericks, and it would probably behoove him to collect that near $12 million in pass go and remain with the Mavericks. And then that would make a decision have to be caused for Nico Harrison in this front office and Mark Cuban. How do you ultimately try to move on from Josh Richardson via a trade? Because ultimately, I don't think the Mavericks look at Josh Richardson as someone who could fit the long-term plans of what they're trying to do going forward, given what their timeline is and what they're trying to do now and what they'll need to do in terms of roster upgrading in the very near future. You'll need to try and potentially move on from Josh Richardson, even though you thought what you were getting from him was a guy that could shoot the ball from the three-point line and be a much better perimeter defender. I know he dealt with COVID not once but twice, but at the same time, I don't know how much longer Josh Richardson is a long-term fit for this Mavericks team. But that gets me back to Kawhi Leonard. Now, Kawhi Leonard left Toronto to go, in essence, home to play with the Los Angeles Clippers, being from the California area and wanting to be closer to his home and ultimately play for the Clippers if he wasn't going to go team up with LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. I have a hard time believing that Kawhi Leonard is going to leave. But the fact that it's reported that the Mavericks will do everything that they can to try and sign Kawhi Leonard, that's a breath of fresh air, especially when you think about Nico Harrison and what he is attempting to do to change the culture and the perception that the Mavericks are not a free agency destination. That is his job, to be able to convince Kawhi Leonard to do so. Kawhi Leonard, one of the 5-7 best players in all of the NBA, would be an absolutely perfect fit with the Mavericks, obviously with his defensive prowess and his ability to take over basketball games on the offensive side and be another offensive playmaker to go alongside Luka Doncic. Chris Paul, your quintessential point guard, floor general and leader, will be able to take some of the ball pressure off of Luka Doncic. Say, Kevin, well, now Chris Paul is much more ball dominant. Needs the ball in his bat. It needs the basketball in his hands a whole lot more. And that may not necessarily be the best fit. You find a way to make it work when it comes to Luka Doncic and Chris Paul, especially if you could get the idea that you want to see Luka Doncic play off the ball a little bit more to be able to continue to improve that other part of his offensive game. That's something to consider. But obviously, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and the Mavericks being linked to them, it creates a lot of excitement and speculation, obviously, for all the MFFLs out there. But when you start thinking about realistically what the Mavericks would have to do, you're going to have to renounce Tim Hardaway Jr. You're going to have to hope that Josh Richardson declines his $11.6 million player option. You're going to have to decline your team option on a guy in Willie Cauley-Stein, because otherwise you don't necessarily have the room to be able to go after them. These are the tough decisions that they're going to have to make to try and get themselves in position. With free agency starting on August 2nd, we'll see how the Mavericks move forward from there. But let the speculation and the fun begin with Kawhi Leonard, Chris Paul, and some of the other realistic names of Rashawn Holmes out of the Sacramento Kings, whom Shams Charania of The Athletic reports that the Mavericks will try to pursue also. You're going to hear a lot of names coming. Ultimately, will the Mavericks pull the trigger in being able to actually get one of these guys to come to the Mavericks? I guess we'll find out. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. It's been another episode of The Gray Area. We'll talk to you later. Peace.